The night felt strangely heavy, like the city itself could sense something breaking inside my life. I was scrolling through my phone, half bored, half distracted, when the apartment door opened softly. Ala stepped in, but the confidence she usually carried was gone. Tonight, she looked small, fragile, as if the world had finally pushed too hard. "I need to talk to you," she said. And just like that, something cold slid down my spine. Normally, I would have said something stupid to lighten the mood, a joke, a smirk, anything to escape discomfort. But her eyes stopped me. There was fear in them, real fear. The kind you only see when a person has lost something they spent their whole life building. She took a shaky breath. "The company. It's gone." 3 simple words, but they hit harder than any punch. Gone, the same empire she built from scratch? The brand people respected more than they respected me. "We're officially bankrupt," she whispered. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. Instead, a deep, crushing silence filled meal like life itself was asking me the one question I'd spent years running from. Now that the money is gone, who are you really?
The news spread faster than a spark in dry grass. By morning, everyone had an opinion about me, and none of them were kind. He's probably gone already. Playboys don't stick around for struggle. He lived off her money. What's left for him now? I heard these comments in whispers, in messages, even in the way people looked at me, like I was a ticking clock about to run away the second life stopped being luxurious. And what hurt wasn't the rumors. What hurt was that Isla believed them too. She stood across the room, arms wrapped around herself like she was bracing for impact. Her voice was quiet when she finally spoke. "Are you staying?" The disbelief in her eyes cut deeper than anything else. She wasn't asking if I loved her. She was asking if I loved comfort more than her. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Not because I wanted to leave, but because I realized something painful. She expected me to choose the easy way out. Had I really lived my life in such a careless blur that even my own wife thought I'd disappeared the moment the luxury faded? I took a breath, feeling something inside me shift, a strange mix of shame and determination. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, but her expression didn't soften. She didn't trust my words. Not yet. And honestly, I couldn't blame her. 3 days later, we were packing our lives into cardboard boxes. The expensive kind, ironically, because even our leftover packaging screamed wealth we no longer had. Walking through the mansion felt surreal. The chandeliers still glittered. The marble floors still echoed. Everything looked the same, yet nothing was the same. It felt like the house itself was watching us fall from the height it once helped hold up. I was folding one of my designer coats when Isla paused in the doorway, staring at me like she was looking at a stranger. "You could really leave all of this?" she asked quietly. Her voice wasn't accusing. It was confused, like she genuinely couldn't understand how a man like me could walk away from a world built on luxury. I looked around the mansion one last time. The gold accents, the silk curtains, the enormous mirror where I'd practiced being a man I wasn't. Then I looked at her. "I didn't stay for the house," I said. "I stayed for you." Isla didn't smile, didn't rush into my arms, didn't whisper thank you. She just stared, as if waiting for the moment I'd break character and admit it was all an act. And maybe that's when I realized something important. Trust doesn't disappear in a day, but it doesn't come back in a day either. We closed the mansion doors behind us. The lock clicked, like the final chapter of a life built on illusion. Ahead of us was an old, cramped apartment in a rough neighborhood. Behind us was everything the world thought defined me. But for the first time, I didn't feel like I was losing anything. I felt like I was finally ready to start over. The old apartment greeted us with flickering lights and a smell of damp walls. It wasn't dangerous, but it wasn't comforting either. The ceiling fan rattled like it was held together by hope alone. The floorboards creaked every time we moved. Outside, someone argued loudly in the hallway, their words echoing through thin walls. This wasn't a downgrade. This was another world altogether. Isla sat on the edge of the worn-out sofa, shoulders slumped. Her fingers kept twisting her wedding ring, a nervous habit she tried to hide. I placed our final box near the corner and exhaled. It was strange. I didn't miss the mansion. Not the massive bed. Not the endless rooms. Not even the luxury brands that used to feel like armor. But I did miss something, and the emptiness of the apartment made it obvious. Isla finally broke the silence. "Are you okay?" Her voice was careful, as if she feared the truth. I turned toward her. "What do you mean?" "I mean, does it bother you? Being here? Losing everything?" She couldn't look at me when she asked. I walked over and sat across from her. "It doesn't bother me," I answered honestly. She swallowed hard. "But you had a life people envied, and I dragged you into this." I shook my head. "No, Isla, I chose to be here." She finally met my eyes, but there was something fragile there, something that made my chest tighten. Then I said the one thing that had been sitting heavy on my tongue since we left the mansion. "I just wish you trusted me enough to believe I wouldn't run." Isla froze. For a moment, the only sound in the room was the old fan's uneven spinning. She opened her mouth, but no words came out, just a quiet, hurting silence. And in that silence, I realized something. This wasn't just about losing a company. We had lost pieces of each other too, but it was the first night of a new life. And sometimes, rebuilding starts with admitting what broke. I didn't know pain could talk, but that night, it did. I had just come back from work. Tired, empty, barely functioning. The apartment was dark, quiet, and felt colder than usual. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor, and for the first time in months, I stopped pretending I was okay. And that's when something inside me broke. It wasn't a loud crack. It wasn't dramatic. It was a quiet, almost gentle collapse, like a building that had been burning for too long finally giving up. I buried my face in my hands, and the words slipped out of my mouth before I could control them. Why wasn't I enough? That question, it was poison. It hit me harder than her betrayal ever did, because for months I had been blaming myself, my personality, my flaws, my mistakes, my silence, my softness, my loyalty. I thought I was the problem. But as the room echoed my pain back at me, something shifted. I suddenly remembered all the times she lied, all the times she made me feel guilty for things she was actually doing, all the times I apologized without being wrong, all the times she made me feel small so she could feel bigger. And for the first time, I realized something incredibly painful, yet freeing. She didn't leave because I wasn't enough. She left because she never knew how to value someone who was. That truth hit me like a shockwave. My tears stopped. My breathing slowed. My mind cleared. I looked at myself in the mirror, eyes red, hair messy, face tired, and I whispered, "You didn't deserve this." It wasn't confidence. It wasn't ego. It was clarity. Pain, for the first time, wasn't my enemy. It was my teacher. It showed me how much I had sacrificed, how much I had tolerated, how much I had accepted just to keep someone who wasn't meant to stay. And that night, I made myself a quiet promise. I would never let anyone make me question my worth again. I didn't know it yet, but that moment was the beginning of a new version of me, the version even she would one day regret losing. Healing didn't happen in a single moment. It wasn't like I woke up one day magically stronger. No, it was slow, quiet, sometimes painfully quiet. But something inside me had changed after that night. The night pain finally spoke the truth. And once you hear the truth, you can't unhear it. I started with small things. I cleaned my room, then the kitchen, then my inbox. It sounds stupid, but putting things in order around me started putting things in order inside me. The more I cleaned, the more I realized how many pieces of her were still lying around. A hair tie, a note she wrote, a t-shirt she loved stealing from me. Each one felt like a landmine. But instead of breaking down, I packed them all into a box. Not with anger, not with sadness, just acceptance. For the first time, I wasn't holding on to what we were. I was letting it go. I started going to the gym, not to get revenge, but to get control. The first day, I couldn't even finish a workout. My body felt weak. My mind felt tired. But I went again the next day, and the next, And the next. Slowly, I started to feel something I hadn't felt in months. Strength. Not physical strength. Not yet, but the strength of showing up for myself. I also stopped avoiding people. My friends noticed I wasn't the same, but they didn't force me to talk. They just stayed around, and that meant more than they knew. Sometimes healing isn't about dramatic conversations. It's about knowing someone is sitting beside you even when you're silent. I also started praying again. Not begging, not bargaining, just sitting with God and letting Him hear me. And somewhere between those quiet moments and my restless nights, I realized something. I wasn't rebuilding myself to prove a point. I wasn't healing to make her regret losing me. I was doing it because I finally understood I deserved better than the version of myself that begged for love. My confidence didn't return instantly, but little by little, I grew into someone I barely recognized. Someone stronger, calmer, more intentional. And without even trying, I was becoming the man I always hoped to be. A man who no longer chased people. A man who wasn't afraid to start over. A man she wouldn't even recognize anymore. What I didn't know then was that destiny was quietly preparing the biggest shift in my life. The moment everything was going to change. Life has a strange way of surprising you when you least expect it. I had finally found a rhythm. Gym, work, prayer, healing, repeat. My days still felt heavy sometimes, but at least they were steady. Then one morning, everything changed. I was leaving the gym, headphones in, hoodie on, mind lost in my own world, when someone tapped my shoulder. I turned around, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. It was her, the girl who broke me, the girl who left without looking back, the girl who shattered everything I had built around her. There she was, standing a few feet away, looking smaller than I remembered, almost nervous. She said my name softly, like she wasn't sure she had the right to say it anymore. And for the first time in months, I felt nothing. No anger, no longing, no pain, just silence. She looked me up and down, almost shocked at how different I looked. Stronger, sharper, more grounded. Her eyes softened with something I didn't recognize at first. Regret. The same regret I once begged for. The same regret I thought would heal me. But now, it felt empty. She tried to smile, like she wanted to pretend nothing had happened. But her voice cracked as she spoke. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. I didn't say anything. I just waited. She looked around nervously, then stepped closer. I made a mistake, she said quietly. A really big one. The words hung in the air like a confession she'd been carrying for months. A while ago, those words would have torn me apart. A while ago, I would have jumped at the chance to hear them. But now, they felt meaningless, because the man she broke no longer existed. I had outgrown the version of myself who once needed her apology. She kept talking about how things didn't work out with the guy she left me for, about how she realized what she lost, about how she never expected me to move on so fast. I listened, not because I cared, but because her words no longer had the power to hurt me. When she finished, she looked at me with a small, trembling smile. Can we maybe start over? And in that moment, I felt something rise inside me. Not pride, not ego, just clarity. I smiled back, calm, steady, unbothered. I'm not the same man you left, I said, and I'm not someone you can return to. Her face fell, but I didn't feel satisfaction. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't payback. This was closure. She had come back looking for the man who once worshipped her. But I had become someone she could never manipulate again. And as I walked away, I realized something powerful. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need her regret. I didn't need her anymore. For the first time, I wasn't running from the past. I was walking toward my future. And destiny had one more twist waiting for me. 2 weeks later, life had settled into a rhythm I actually enjoyed. The old apartment no longer felt suffocating. The streets I once avoided now seemed alive, real. I had stopped running from myself. That evening, Isla returned from work, exhausted. But there was something different about her. A subtle tension in her shoulders, a quiet desperation in her eyes. She sat down across from me at the small kitchen table, her fingers nervously twisting a mug. "Why are you always late?" she asked softly, though I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. I slid a thin folder across the table. Her brow furrowed. "What's this?" I leaned back, calm, collected, a side of me she hadn't seen before. "This," I said, "is the truth you never expected." She opened it, and her eyes widened as she skimmed the pages inside. There were documents, agreements, investor letters, plans, proof that our failing company wasn't finished, that it was being rebuilt. And it wasn't just being saved. It was being elevated beyond what she had ever imagined. "You did all this?" Her voice was barely a whisper. I nodded. "Not for you. Not to prove anything to anyone. I did this for us, for what we could have been, for what we can still create together if we choose to." Her hands trembled as she set the folder down. For the first time, I saw her vulnerable, stripped of pride, stripped of control. And I realized something powerful. She had never truly understood the depth of my commitment. I leaned forward, meeting her gaze. "I didn't change for you. I changed because I finally believe I deserve better. And I built something real from the ground up, something you'll now have to see with your own eyes." Tears welled in her eyes, but I stayed composed. This wasn't about emotions anymore. This was about respect for myself and for what I had become. For years, everyone thought I was a playboy, a man who would vanish at the first sign of trouble. But now, she and everyone else saw the truth. I was more than appearances. I was loyalty, determination, and integrity wrapped in someone who once only cared about the surface. She looked down at the folder again, and I knew she was finally grasping what I had always been capable of. Not the man everyone thought she married. The man she would one day regret losing. And in that moment, I smiled quietly to myself, because the life I rebuilt was no longer defined by anyone else's expectations. It belonged entirely to me. I had won, not because I chased revenge, but because I never stopped being true to myself. The future was mine, and no one, not even her, could take it away.